All right, Algebra 1B students, welcome to part 2 of lesson 10.2 on simplifying square roots, or simplifying radicals. Now, in this video, we are going to simplify square roots and fractions, specifically square roots of fractions and square roots in fractions. So we're going to put those two ideas together, starting with the square root of fractions. Square rooting the fraction isn't really that difficult, because just like in multiplying, remember that if I have, say, the square root of 9 times 10, I can split that square root and say the square root of 9 times the square root of 10. It's exactly the same with dividing or with a fraction bar. If I have, in this case, the square root of 36 over 64, well, I can split the square root and put it on the top and on the bottom of that fraction. So take the square root of the numerator on the top and the denominator on the bottom. So the square root of 36 over 64 is equal to the square root of 36 over the square root of 64. Well, we know the square root of 36 is plus or minus 6. Square root of 64 is plus or minus 8. And we can reduce that fraction, obviously, by dividing both of those by 2. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. And we get plus or minus 3/4. So to take the square root of a fraction, we just need to take the square root of the top, or the numerator, and the square root of the bottom, the denominator of that fraction. That's something I think we can all handle. But if you want an example here where both of the numbers are not exactly perfect square numbers, we can do the square root of 12 over 16. And then once again, we'll split that square root to be on the top and the bottom of that fraction. The square root of 12 over the square root of 16. Now, the square root of 16 we know is 4. The square root of 12, we have to think about perfect square numbers that go into 12 to see if we can simplify that at all. And I think 4 does go in there. So if I split the square root of 12 into the square root of 4 times 3, and then that's the square root of 4 times the square root of 3, that becomes here, plus or minus 2 square root of 3. I'm still over 4 because the bottom was the square root of 16. But now I want you to notice that I can cancel something on the top and bottom. I have a 2 and a 4. And because neither one of them is under a square root, I am allowed to cancel those out. So I'll cancel the 2 and make it a 1, cancel the 4 and make it a 2. My final answer is 1 square root of 3 over 2, and I'm still positive or negative, obviously. So hopefully the square root of a fraction isn't too difficult. We're just splitting the square root and doing our process twice. Sometimes it will be a nice perfect square number like 16. Sometimes it will not be, like 12, and we'll have to do some work like we were doing in previous videos. Now, we run into an issue when we do this if we end up with a square root on the bottom of the fraction. Mathematicians hate that for some reason. We do not want any square roots on the bottom of any of our fractions. So we are going to get rid of that square root down there by doing what is called rationalizing the denominator, meaning get rid of the square root on the bottom of the fraction. So to remove the square root on the bottom of this fraction, we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by exactly the same thing, and that is by the square root that comes from the bottom of the fraction. So I'm going to multiply the top by the square root of 7 here, and I'm going to multiply the bottom by the square root of 7. And we'll watch what happens when we do that. So again, I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by the same thing. I'm allowed to do that because square root of 7 over square root of 7 is 1. So I'm not changing anything. I'm just moving that square root around a little bit. Now the top is going to become 9 square root of 7. I can't simplify the square root of 7 at all. The 9 doesn't go in there because it's not a square root, so I'll just leave it like that. The bottom now becomes the square root of 7 times the square root of 7. I'm going to put those together into one square root. Now this is kind of like the opposite of what we've been doing before. We've been going from one big square root here and splitting it up. But now I'm going to put them together so that I can say, well, that bottom is really just the square root of 49. Square root of 49. So this is 9 square root of 7 over 49 square root of 49. But we know square root of 49 is 7. Right? We know it's 7. In this case, we do not need to worry about a plus or minus, because my original thing, all I'm doing is changing this original thing, and it was positive. So I will just leave it positive. 7 on the bottom of that fraction. So I went from 9 over the square root of 7 to 9 times the square root of 7 over 7. You'll see that pattern show up a lot. But that's how we get rid of a square root in the bottom of a fraction. We multiply the top and the bottom by the same thing, and when all is said and done, we end up here with kind of a weird-looking fraction with a square root on the top. Square root on the top. Okay? Now, I would like you to try these two problems, A and B. Really all I'm asking you to do here is rationalize the denominator, meaning get rid of that square root on the bottom of the fraction by multiplying top and bottom by exactly the same thing. But I want you to notice over here, 18 can be simplified as a number when we get there. Okay? So pause the video, take a look at these problems. You should absolutely be able to do letter A. We'll see about letter B. Okay, letter A becomes the square root of 2 times the square root of 3 over square root of 3 times square root of 3. The bottom, those two square roots basically cancel each other out. That's a 3. The top square root of 2 times square root of 3 is the square root of 2 times 3, which is the square root of 6. So that is letter A. Square root of 6 divided by 3. Letter B, if I multiply top and bottom by square root of 18m, I know for sure there's going to be an m on the top under my square root. And let's see, I believe it's going to be 10 m's under the square root with a 3 outside. A plus or minus 3 outside. The bottom, obviously, the square roots cancel out. We get 18 m's. Now, again, here I can cancel the 3 and the 18. Make this 1 square root of 10m over 18 divided by 3 is 6. I'll get rid of the 1 because I don't need it. There's my final answer, square root of 10m over 6m. If you have questions about rationalizing the denominator, please make a note to ask me in class tomorrow. Otherwise, that's all I have for you. Have a wonderful night.